I'm Christian Small, and I'm here with Lance Graulich. Lance, want to say hello?
Hi there. Good morning.
Good morning is right. It's just a little bit afternoon here on the East Coast, and about a little after 9 where Lance is. So, Lance, I have a couple questions to ask you today. And the first is kind of tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into the restaurant business.
Well, Christian, I am almost 50 years young, and at a young age, I thought I was going to work for my father's company on Wall Street. Thought I was going to be a stockbroker, and my father had interest in restaurants. My grandfather had interest in supermarkets. He owned a chain of supermarkets. In the early 50s, he started that. And as a young boy, I used to visit his stores, and I guess I got fascinated with what it was to be your own boss. But yet I still carved a path to work for Dad on Wall Street. And up until college, I felt strongly that was my path, Wall Street. And while in college, I got into the bar business. I like to visit the bars like every college student.
Yep.
And I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed the people aspects of it. And just after college, I left New York, which is where I was born, and headed to Arizona to work for TGI Fridays restaurants. But that was my uh, you know, first stint in the restaurant business. So I guess that answers that, the
Okay.
beginning, so to speak.
So, can you describe your transition from being, from working within the restaurant to being a franchisee and to starting and owning your own restaurant business?
Sure, sure. So as I understood that the restaurant business was going to be my destiny, and coming out of college and starting with TGI Fridays, a great, great management training system. I remember completing TGI Fridays management training in the late '80s, and I remember they told you, "Congratulations, you now know more than 99% of all restaurant managers in the United States, or in the world for that matter, because of the depth of knowledge that they give you throughout the training process." It's basically a 6-month training program, and it's go at your own pace. I happen to complete it uh, quicker than most people. And, so as far as my transition, once you start working for someone else in the restaurant business and you gain knowledge, this is true in any business, of course, or any vocation, you want to, some people want to be their own boss.
Yep.
We start to think, I certainly started to think, I can do what they do. I can do what my boss does. And what will that give me? More money, more freedom, more time to do other things. So that's sort of how the progression worked for me, is jumping from company to company every several years for a promotion and a raise. And then when I got to the top, I realized I had to make the leap and work for myself.
So, can you tell me a little bit about concepts and how it operates, and maybe a little bit about Pinkbox, which I know that's what you're doing today, correct?
Well, Pinkbox I recently sold my interest in, but I have created. So let me give you the natural progression in what you've asked so far.
Okay.
For me, the first step after working for other people, national chain restaurants and what have you, was to become a franchisee. Because to become a franchisee, you don't need as much money because there are concepts that are financeable. You can go to a bank, and as long as it's on the Small Business Association registry, the SBA registry as it's called, you can get financing for a restaurant concept that is pretty well proven, like McDonald's and Taco Bell and big concepts such as that. So I wasn't interested in any of the big concepts. I found a smaller concept called Wingstop, and I got involved as a franchisee and an area developer. I opened 6 stores. I was eventually president of the Franchise Advisory Council for Wingstop and really enjoyed it. But after a period of time, again, natural progression in what happens in most of us, or some of us, is you get bored again and you feel like you're put in a box and you can't do what you really want to do, because in a franchise, they teach you the script, they teach you the process, they teach you the system, and you need to do that exactly the same everywhere you go. Well, I was sort of done with that. I said, I want to create my own brands. So for me, creating concepts was the natural next step after being a franchisee. And Create was the first concept, oddly enough. What a name.
Yep.
And Create was a gourmet burger and frozen custard place, very similar to Shake Shack. I opened Create in 2007. I think Shake Shack opened just before me, and then I only discovered Shake Shack then after and realized how similar they were. But Create was incredibly successful in Las Vegas for about 3 years, and I sold it to some folks that I know. Unfortunately, with their various business interests, a year and a half or so after they purchased it, they sold it again to someone else who changed the concept entirely. At some other point, I do get phone calls regularly, and I have for years, as I've become known as the creator. That is my license plate. And, people call me and say, hey, can you create me a concept?
Yep.
So I had an old friend call me who I had met at Create, who said, can you create me a donut shop? And I said, what do you got so far? And he says, well, I just want the name to be Pink Box. And I said, great, what else you got? He goes, no, that's it. You create the rest. Okay, I can do that.
Yep.
So I created Pink Box, from getting the trademark done to the donuts. I hired a baker / friend of mine to help me with the R&D process. He was tremendously helpful in the early days before we opened. We created about 105 donuts on paper, and we opened the place, and within a few weeks it was a raging success.
Where do you get your inspiration for these ideas? I know that you have people reach out to you oftentimes, but is there ever a time where you'll sit down and kind of brainstorm for something yourself?
Great question. I think I'll speak for myself. My brain runs constantly. I can't shut it off. There are plenty of times where I just can't sleep because I all of a sudden think of an idea. But I collect ideas. I collect thoughts when I go to restaurants, things that are right, things that are wrong. Sadly, I visit restaurants and I go with my kids, I go with my wife, and I make comments like, sadly, that won't make it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, wow, really? You can tell that it's not going to make it? And I was like, well, sadly, I can. Yeah, I mean, I understand what customers want. I've always had a knack for understanding what customers want. I don't know where that came from. I think that's just an innate ability. Some people are born with great athletic prowess, and other people are born with other gifts. And for me, I was a good athlete, and I still am a good athlete. Understanding what customers want in the hospitality business, the restaurant business, is something that has just come easy to me.
Throughout your entire career, you obviously had to overcome struggles. What would you say is the biggest thing that you've had to overcome, and how did you learn from it?
It's such a great question, and the two things that come to mind, the struggles have always been money, financing, having the right amount of money at the right time. When you're an entrepreneur and you go around and you tell people, here's my business plan, in some cases I have done, I've done now 2 private placements. They call them, for short, PPMs, private placement memorandums. And that's to raise money privately as opposed to going public and doing an initial public offering.
Okay.
So whether it's through PPMs or just handing out a business plan and collecting funds from friends and family, it's always difficult because people say they're going to give you money. And when the time comes, all of a sudden they don't want to give you the money for whatever reason. And then the other struggle for me has been partners. No matter how you write up partnership agreements, there's always a gray area.
One last thing, in conclusion, do you have any words of advice for those who want to be an entrepreneur or have desires to do something abstract in the future?
I certainly do. Never listen to the naysayers. Whoever you are, whether you come from a wealthy family, a poor family, an entrepreneurial family, or not, everywhere around you, there will be people that tell you whatever you're about to do is never going to work. It's a waste of time. You're going to lose your investment. You're going to lose your partner's investment, whatever it might be, there will be negativity floating around all entrepreneurs anywhere and everywhere. So my advice is believe in what you want to do, but, plan it, study it. I knew when I wanted to be an entrepreneur in the restaurant industry. I worked for some of the best brands out there for many, many, many years and wrote my notes and took those notes, vigorous, copious notes, to understand what I did and didn't want to do as I got started.
Lance, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and
You're very welcome.
everything
Anytime, Christian.
was so insightful, and it's great to hear from you.
Thank you very much for your time, and I wish you luck.
Thank you so much.